Welcome back to the Draft Geeks podcast, everybody. We are going to be doing our 2026 Rookie Dynasty Mock Draft. So we'll do 4 rounds, a 10-team mock draft, 2 quarterback league, all that fun stuff. If you're fantasy nerds, whatever it is, if you just love drafts content, we're still on the 2026 draft, but now we're moving it over to the fantasy football side of things. So hopefully you're ready because the Draft Geeks podcast starts right now.
Welcome into another episode of the Draft Geeks podcast, everybody. Jace and I are staying with the 2026 draft class, moving it over to more of a fantasy lens. As he said, we're going to go through 4 rounds, talk through the picks that we would make, talk through the picks that the computer has made. So it'll be 8 computer picks in every round, 2 from us. We'll talk through each of them, give you guys some rookie advice, whether you are in a dynasty league or you're in a redraft league and you're looking to take some shots on rookies later on in your draft. We're going to try to tell you which ones are worth it, which ones are worth staying away from. We'll get into all of those and more on this one. Jace, how are you doing?
Doing good, man. I've done 2 rookie mock drafts, or well, not mock drafts, 2 rookie drafts so far in a couple of my leagues that I'm in. And I will say it gets pretty scarce there towards the 4th round, but there's still some guys that you can find down there that might have some sort of impact in a year or 2, maybe even towards the back half of this year. But it's not one of the most loaded draft classes for dynasty football. That's for sure.
Jace, let's play a game of Would You Rather before we start. Would you rather, and we're going to expand it to a 12-team league just to make it interesting in this question. Okay. Would you rather have pick 311 or would you rather have $10 of fab?
$10 of fab, probably.
If that doesn't set the tone for this one.
It doesn't. But like just knowing the guys that have been there around 311 at some of those back end tight ends, and it's like maybe $10
that doesn't set the tone. I don't know what else sets the tone because
maybe $10 a fab is better. Yeah, you might get to week 6 of the season and someone gets hurt, and $10 a fab is going to get you maybe a guy that's at least in the rotation or maybe a starter just because of injuries at some point. So $10 a fab, yeah, that's very good. Okay, I hinted at it before the show. I want to talk about something a little fun before we get into this mock draft for Dynasty. So if you guys want to skip ahead a little bit, but you can see the smile on my face because the Utah Jazz jumped up in the NBA draft lottery. And I've always thought about it because everyone argues, is the NFL right for not doing a lottery, or are they wrong? They're right.
The NFL is right. My take on tanking, especially in a condensed season like the NFL has, my take on lotteries is that tanking only happens more when you have lotteries. When you let bad teams get good players, they tank less. When you punish them and you screw them over, like the Vancouver Canucks, who could lose to Disney on Ice next year, and you don't let them get Gavin McKenna at the top of the NHL draft.
Instead, it's Toronto, who already has Austin Matthews. And
right. You springboard franchises forward that don't necessarily need to be move forward. I'm for some sort of a lottery in an 82-game season. I understand that you can't have these teams punting 50 games. So if there is a lottery with like the top 5 picks, that's not the end of the world to me. But teams in the play-in, like the Golden State Warriors, had a chance to make the playoffs this year. They can't be in the lottery. That's not right to me. I wouldn't mind them implementing a system similar to the MLB that punishes teams for picking in the top 10 3 consecutive years. If you're picking in the top, I believe I'm right on this, where if you pick in the top 10 for 3 straight years, like you pick 10 and you're no longer eligible for that lottery. It punished the White Sox after their historically bad season. It punished the Rockies last season after their near historically bad season. But in a non-salary cap sport, you're punishing the owners for being cheap. In the NFL, you don't really know if your season is over until like week 9 or 10 at the very earliest. You could always spin it around. And at the same time, even to close the season, you have guys out there that are putting their literal lives on the line for their jobs. So I think when a team earns the first overall pick for being bad, it's best to help them solve their problems and get on with their way so they're not bad anymore. And if they want to be the New York Jets and figure out how to still be in purgatory without the lottery, then so be it. But that's my take right there.
I love what you said there, because it's so hard when, like, Dallas last year, who their front office really screwed over their whole by trading Luka, that bad trade. And then they get rewarded a year after being in the conference semifinals with Cooper Flag. Yeah. And everyone this year was worried about, oh, hey, who's going to jump? Is it Golden State? I like what the NHL does too, where if you are the max you can move up is 10 spots. So if you're picking at 11 and you win the lottery, you could or if you're picking at 12, because it happened to the Mammoth last year. I think they were picking at 14. They won the lottery for the second overall pick, but that you can only go up 10 spots. So that way, play-in teams, in the NBA, like you said, can't go up to the number 1, number 2 overall pick. But I agree. I just think it's so dumb how these teams that are being bad are kind of forced to be bad, whether it's a small market and no one wants to go there. Maybe it is their owners that put them in a bad spot, but it's like, why would we not want to give them a great or potentially a franchise altering player to try to get them out of there? Why would we prolong this tanking or this bad, team that they have for 2 to 3 years because the ping pong balls don't fall in their way? So I always just think that's a funny thing to bring up, because I know it's so controversial in the MLB. They just added a little bit there, and then the NBA and NHL you've seen in the past where Toronto, who's already had a number 1 pick, and they were in the conference.
Toronto has only missed the playoffs twice in the last 10 years, and they've won the lottery both times. The last thing I'll say is I think the NBA, the step that they took recently to give teams picking 5 through 8 better odds than the teams that finish 1 through 3 or whatever is league altering, league damaging type of thing. I think it's horrible. I think that's one of the worst moves that's ever been made in professional sports as long as I've been alive. I think that's awful. If you're having an 82 game season where a team's going to be bad, you might as well at least give them something to be excited about. The thought of AJ DeBonsa or Darren Peterson would be something to be excited about. And if your team is that bad and you're like, now we're extra bad because we're going to pick 6 instead of 1, and we went 18 and 62 or whatever the heck that adds up to, I think that's just terrible, and I'm thankful the NFL doesn't have a lottery for now, although I do think it'll happen in our lifetime. But I will say, I watched the NBA draft lottery the other night. Horrible TV. So it's really bad TV.
Until they televise it.
It's the prospects just standing there, sitting there, and then they don't even have anything happen. They just open an envelope that was probably prearranged and rigged. And so,
have you ever watched the NHL lottery?
Yeah, that one's actually
because they actually televise the ping pong balls and they show you the live odds. That would be better, just suspense wise and stuff, than having the prospects stand there and, like you said, deputy commissioner, whoever, opening up an envelope, the 11th pick, the 10th pick, the 9th pick. It's at least let's get the ping pong balls rolling and stuff, and maybe it would help kill some of the lotteries rigged or whatever. So that's our little spill. I always think about that, and I'm actually happy because the Jazz actually moved up for the first time in franchise history. Last year I was pissed because they had the worst record. Like you said, they won 18 games and they fall to 5th, and it's geez, you already knew they were going to be bad, but you're trying to look forward to something, and now they fall to the 5th pick, and you have to watch a team that had Luka Doncic and was in the NBA Conference Finals get rewarded the number 1 overall pick when they had a 1.7% chance. And it's hard. So, but without further ado, like you said, luckily there's no lottery for Dynasty or whatever. So my
Dynasty league does have a lottery. How about that?
Do you guys? So we do it in my family league, but it's a redraft league. And how it works is if you win the lottery, you choose where you draft.
Wow.
So if you win the lottery
for a redraft league.
Yes, for a redraft. If you win the lottery, you can be I want the 101, or you can be I want the 110 because I want it the turn. And it's a redraft league. So we do have a lottery in one of my redraft leagues, but not for anything else.
In my Dynasty league, we spin a wheel for the 4 teams that missed the playoffs, 10-man league, and 8 slices of the wheel go to the team that had the worst record, 4 slices go to second, 2 slices go to third, and 1 slice goes to the team that finished 4th. So,
nice.
I think we've always had the team with 8 win the lottery. But this year we did have that team with 1 slice jump from 4 to 2. But
wow,
It's nothing crazy because you don't drop further than 4, and the odds are heavily in your favor, and everybody that makes the playoffs is set in stone. But if the NBA had it their way, the teams that lost in the first round of the playoffs would be eligible for that. And I don't stand for that BS.
I don't either. So, again, guys, this is
at 10 minutes.
This is a Dynasty 4-round mock draft, rookies only. It's going to be 10 teams, 2 quarterback league is kind of what we're going off of. And just so you guys know the basis of the rules. So I'll be picking at the 103. Max will be picking at the 108. And that goes all the way down to 203, 303, 403, etc. So we'll go ahead and start this. Again, if you guys are not on YouTube, you can go ahead and flip over to YouTube so that you can see this. So I got to remember how to pause. There we go. Pause the draft so we can talk right here. So the 101 is Jeremiah Love. Next. And then the 102 is Fernando Mendoza. This is an interesting conversation. I want to bring this up.
Yeah.
In a 2 quarterback league, how comfortable are you taking Mendoza over the top 3 receivers?
Depends on my need, but I don't think I'm comfortable. I actually think that this class has a nice top 5 with Tate, Tyson, and Lemon and Price in addition to Jeremiah Love. But I'm assuming team 2 picking at 102 needs a quarterback desperately. If you do, I think Fernando Mendoza is a decent option and your only option, quite frankly. I would look to trade back, but also at the end of the day, it's not that substantial. So if you really need quarterback, I'm comfortable with it as long as you're not drafting him over Jeremiah Love.
And this is an interesting conversation, and I've thought about it before. And in one of my leagues, I took from Fernando Mendoza at the 105 because all the receivers were gone, so it made sense. But I also am thinking if I'm sitting here at the 102, 103, and I'm like, hey, I need a quarterback. And maybe you're not looking to contend next year either, because we know the 2027 class is pretty stacked. Maybe you have a couple first-round picks in 2027. I don't think it's crazy to take Mendoza because you don't want to be forced to take. I promise you next year, you're probably going to want to take a receiver over some of the quarterbacks that are taken now. Arch Manning, some of those guys still. But if you could take Mendoza right here, who could have a year 1 fantasy impact and then be really good year 2, and stack that with like a Jeremiah Smith, a Cam Coleman, some of those guys next year, Ryan Coleman, Williams. Yeah, Nick Marsh out of Indiana. Like, you could totally do that. I don't think that thought process is crazy at all. Like, I think if you want to get quarterback out of the way and you're next year, you could easily say, hey, I want Mendoza right now so that I don't have to take a quarterback, or I don't feel like I need to take a quarterback over, say, Jeremiah Smith, Cam Coleman, those guys I just mentioned. So I actually don't think it's crazy. Again, like you said, it kind of all depends on what the need of the team is. So
totally.
With that being said, Mendoza off the board, Jeremiah Love, the consensus 101. It comes down to Carnell Tate, Jordan Tyson for me, who were both top 10 picks. They have the fantasy draft. They were drafted, high. So they have that value going to them, the positional thing. I would probably lean Carnell Tate because I love what they're doing with Cam Ward. And I also do like Brian Dable, that he always seems to have a really good receiver for him that they like to target. I do think it's really close with Jordan Tyson, but I would like to see Shuck develop a little bit more. And I'd like to see how they use him with Chris Olave. Because for me, Carnell Tate doesn't really have a number 1 next to him. Jordan Tyson kind of does with Chris Olave. So here I would go with Carnell Tate at the 103.
After you resume the draft.
After I resume and take it. All right. Okay, you're on the board at the 108. Talk to me about who went before you and what you're thinking here.
Well, listen, Tyson and Lemon and Price going next, I think, is pretty chalk. Those first 6 picks, I think, is what's to be expected. Casey Concepcion is the first of the batch of 3 wide receivers with himself, his teammate Denzel Boston, and Omar Cooper Jr. that I would expect to go off the board. Obviously, I don't have an existing roster here, but I will emphasize the value of having a productive tight end in fantasy football. So I would take Kenyon Sadiq right here.
All right, I'll resume this for you so you can take it. I mean, Sadiq too, and if you're looking early into the draft for next year, I mean, I know we haven't quite got into, so much summer scouting. We'll get into that, so make sure you guys are subscribed or following.
The tight end class next year is not one that I'm jumping off the.
And there's been some early mock drafts. We'll also do a 2027 early mock, but there's been guys that have taken Tradez Green right out of LSU, Jamari Johnson, But
I like Trey Green.
I still don't think he's Kenyon Sadiq.
No.
Like compared to Sadiq, Pitts, Bowers, Warren, Loveland, like I don't think he's on that level.
There's not that.
And so again, it kind of comes down to like, oh man, if I need a tight end, I might want to take him this year. And so I agree with you. I tried to get Sadiq in a couple leagues I was in that I was tight and needy. I wasn't able to do it because I think a lot of people are realizing too, like, hey, he might not have had the best landing spot in the Jets, but I do think next year when they address the quarterback situation or possibly with Brandon Sorsby might be a really good position for him. Braden Sorsby, sorry, might be a really great position for him in New York. So Omar Cooper Jr. comes off at the 109, Ty Simpson at the 110, Denzel Boston at the 201, Jonah Coleman at the 202. So a couple people I want to talk about. Ty Simpson at the 110. I get it's a 2-quarterback league, but I just am not comfortable taking him very early in mocks because I think Stafford has 2 to 3 years left. I don't want to taxi squad him for this. Like if he had a 1-year sit, then I would taxi squad him for sure. But you're going to have to taxi squad him and then move him to your normal roster for probably 2 years after that. Like he might not get a snap until his 4th year in the league, maybe 3rd. Yeah. Like I just think that that's really high draft value, and I would much rather take a guy like Denzel Boston, or if someone were to fall there, like Omar Cooper. So the other one I want to talk about is Jonah Coleman. I know me and you were both pretty high on Jonah Coleman. I think he has a really good landing spot. They took RJ Harvey last year, and they also have J.K. Dobbins, but Jonah Coleman in fantasy value wise, he's going to have an early path to having a lot of points, short yardage, goal line touches. He might take over, RJ Harvey's role just because they didn't seem very high on RJ Harvey. So I really like that Jonah Coleman pick. Now, moving to where I'm at right here, picking at the 203, you took Kenyon Sadiq. I don't love where he went, like to the Jets, but I do love where Eli Stowers went to the Eagles, potentially moving off of AJ Brown. I know they have Kenyon Sadiq, but now they also have who's Dallas Goedert, who's probably going to be gone next year because he's only on a 1-year deal. So I really like the other tight end in this class, Eli Stowers, who landed with the Philadelphia Eagles. I really like taking him, especially in the early part of the 2nd round.
There, Chris Bell goes. Nick Singleton, Emmett Johnson, Chris Bell, and Mike Washington follow your Stowers pick. I think Nick Singleton stands out in this bunch as the guy with a path to early playing time. He's going to be behind Tony Pollard and Tyjae Spears, but I think he could work into the rotation towards the end of the year. Obviously has the athletic upside. Emmett Johnson, I think that's a little early for me. I know it's an intriguing landing spot because he's on the Kansas City Chiefs, but they just paid Kenneth Walker. And I'm not sure he has starter upside as long as Kenneth is on the team. Jumping Chris Bell for 1 second, Mike Washington, I think is immensely more valuable if you have Ashton Genty on your team. I think that's a great handcuff, and I love the value the Raiders got him. He will play early on in year 1. So I would take him over Singleton, over Johnson, because he will get touches. Those two have at least 2 running backs ahead of them. Chris Bell's intriguing, coming off the torn ACL in an empty wide receiver room after the Jalen Waddle trade. So there is a path to Chris Bell getting a lot of touches once he's on the field. Jumping into my 208, things got scarce here quick. I think wide receiver is where the most volume is. I will say Katron Allen is really intriguing for Washington. Not a fan of what they have in their running back room and think he was a better prospect coming out than Ja'Cory Krosky-Merritt. So I think Katron Allen could end up being the one. I won't take him here, although I might have just talked myself into it. Wow. I wouldn't want to touch Jeremy Bernard. He's a 3. Surratt's going to battle Lane. I don't love Ravens wide receivers beyond Zay. Chris Brazzell is a downfield threat, but that's a crowded room. Antonio Williams, Malachi Fields stand out the most. And I won't take Skylar Bell. I'll jump into that when the CPU takes him. All right, you know what? If you unpause this guy, I'm going to go ahead and take Katron Allen. I don't think the Commanders have a bona fide star at RB1, and this was a guy that quietly had a super productive year last year at Penn State. And I think Katron Allen could work himself onto the field, and I think he's a very nice complement and running style to Jaden Daniels. So if you're looking for a running back who can get you some points this year, after Mike Washington and Jonah Coleman come off the board, I would take Kaytron Allen.
I like that pick there. We thought that Washington might go there running back a little bit earlier. So
way earlier. Yeah. They had limited draft capital and they got a guy that was in my top 100. So I was really impressed with the value of the pick. And I wouldn't consider his draft capital to be against him, given Washington didn't have a lot of selections. If they had more and they really like Kaytron Allen, he could have gone a lot earlier.
Yeah.
Oh my God. 2 quarterbacks went.
Two quarterbacks come off. This is the hard part is CPU seems to value these quarterbacks a little bit more. I get it, but Carson Beck in Arizona actually isn't horrible just because they took him in the first part of the third. He might actually play. Garrett Nussmeier sitting behind Patrick Mahomes where he was. I don't know. I'm not comfortable taking him. He's going to be a taxi squad guy. Yeah, and Justin Fields. And so he's going to be a taxi squad guy there. The 2 receivers that went, one at the 210 and one at the 302, Jeremy Bernard and Elijah Surratt. I really like Jeremy Bernard, but I don't love where he landed in Pittsburgh. There's still some stuff up
fantasy.
in the air.
I don't. Yeah.
Yeah, because
for real life, I do.
You got Michael Pittman and you got DK Metcalf on the outside. You got those guys who, might take up a lot of the target share. Now, Bernard's a very reliable guy. He's going to get a lot of targets, but I don't know if he's going to get the fantasy value at the 210 spot. The guy I'm looking at here at the 303 that really jumps off the page to me is Antonio Williams out of Washington. Yeah. This is a guy who I think fits very nicely next to Terry McLaurin. He's a great route runner out of the slot. He creates a ton of separation. He is great with the ball in his hands. So I would have taken Antonio Williams over Jeremy Bernard and Elijah Surratt. And I think this
him over Kaytron Allen.
When you mentioned his name, I got a little nervous, like you were actually going to take him. And I was like, oh, crap, he's going to snake me and stuff. But I'll go back to the Washington Commanders team. We've taken 2 of them so far between us. I'll take Antonio Williams to be a receiver on my team there.
There go the quarterbacks. Drew Aller, Cade Klubnik. For the record, I think given the buzz and given the weaknesses in the Jets quarterback room, if you're interested in the points, I think you could take Klubnik over Nussmeier and Aller. If you're interested in the potential, you could take Aller, but please don't find yourself expecting anything significant. Want to touch on the 2 tight ends that went. Max Clare, I think, is a good long-term play, appropriate in the 3rd round, very talented player, no immediate path to get on the field, at least in a guaranteed playing time perspective. Oscar Delp, I think, was taken in the 3rd round by New Orleans. So that's positive draft capital for him. He's somebody that has the potential to be a massively more productive pro than college player. The ball just never kind of really went his way as a Georgia Bulldog. He had crowded tight end rooms every year that he was there. I think he could develop into something in a room that includes Juwan Johnson and then Tyson and Olave on the outside. So I do like those 2 picks beyond the top 2 tight ends. I think those are 2 guys that are worth looking at. At the 3-8, I'm down to 2 guys here, and then want to give one more shout out, but won't take him because I just drafted his position. Malachi Fields is a big-time, big-bodied threat for the New York Giants. I think Jackson Dart throwing the ball up to him. I definitely think that that's worth your time in the 3rd round. The shout out, I'll save the guy I'm going to take for last. The shout out is Damon Claiborne. He has a shot to actually be the one for the Minnesota Vikings, the rookie out of Wake Forest. Absurd where they took him late on day 3. Aaron Jones and Jordan Mason is one of the weaker running back duos in the NFL. Damon Claiborne brings amazing speed. Think Keaton Mitchell there. I think Damon Claiborne in the 3rd or 4th, if you have the 4th round, is amazing value. I think Sleeper is way undervaluing his where he should go here. The guy I will take is Skylar Bell, the rookie out of UConn, Buffalo Bills wide receiver. I love the landing spot. DJ Moore is there. Khalil Shakir is there. I think Skylar Bell being drafted can allow Khalil Shakir to become more of that field stretcher. Skylar Bell will take the quick stuff, big time for PPR. And DJ Moore will, absolutely go to work over the middle on ins, on outs, be the one. But I think they could end up feeding Skylar Bell. He could be the type of guy that could go for 5 catches for 45 yards or 60 yards and rack up your PPR points. I don't envision Keon Coleman impacting his target share too much. So Skylar Bell, somebody that you could look for to get on the field in some capacity this year, and then certainly down the road.
Love the pick there. I think that
they needed Claiborne.
They've needed a receiver. And we need to stop and talk about this one since this is a new development. But Le'Veon Moss, the running back out of Miami, made it all of 3 days in the NFL and then decided to retire. So don't take him in your Dynasty Rookie Mock Drafts. And if you already had one and you took him, you can drop him and find someone else. So you talked on Damon Claiborne. I do think Justin Jolly, he went at the 401 here. Denver took him. He fell in the draft way farther than I thought he would. I do think that he has a very good value other than Clarence Delp. He might get very good usage year one. They need a tight end there. Sean Payton's always wanted a guy that they can have, and he's a big pass-catching tight end. So I like Justin Jolly there. Michael Trigg was undrafted, I believe, went to Dallas, and he went at the 402 there. So you're looking at some of the receivers on the board. Like, I'm taking Malachi Fields over him for sure.
Oh, yeah.
Because of his ability to go up and get it. Jackson Dart there. Zachariah Branch. There's not very many guys in Atlanta competing with him for targets either, other than Drake London. Then obviously, you have Kyle Pitts, Chris Brazzell, because of his big playability. I think that he fits next to Tedero McMillan. He can take the top off of defenses there. Ted Hurst is an interesting one, also out of Tampa Bay. He might be able to replace that Mike Evans role that they just lost. The one that I'm always interested in, and I want to get your take because I know that he was really high on your board.
I know who you're going to say. Yeah.
Is it Dazon Stribling?
Yeah, and I would love to talk with whoever makes the sleeper draft board, because I get that you want to have him a little bit lower because, you talk to the general population of people that watched and graded these players, and most of these people would have had him lower than one or if not both of Brazzell and Fields, and then I don't know where you have him next to Branch, but Dazon Stribling was the 33rd pick in the NFL draft. He absolutely has to go higher than the 4th round off draft capital alone. I know there's not necessarily a track record of immense success for these 49ers wide receivers beyond the super versatile guys like an Ayuk or a Debo. I would kind of throw Debo out the window. That's a very unique situation. So listen, I get it. You're not taking him as early as Tate and Tyson and Lemon and Concepcion and Boston because those guys have immediate path to success. But Stribling's going to get on the field. He was their first pick. They traded out of the first round, took him at the top of the second. He absolutely deserves to be taken higher than basically every single person that you see on the draft board right now. I would have considered, Malachi Fields, but just confused as to why he's rated this low. Below Brennan Thompson and Kevin Coleman is crazy to me. Jacoby Lane and Ted Hurst are more developmental guys. Stribling was the 33rd pick.
And that's what's so fun about Dynasty is where draft value in the actual draft should say a lot. Like you're talking about it like Nicholas Singleton, if he was drafted earlier, probably would be a first round running back to some, like where guys are taken is really important to say, one, what the teams think about them. And then two, how much usage they're probably going to have. You're not going to spend the 33rd overall pick on a guy that you don't see being able to play for 2 years. So between Ricky Parasol, who has been good, but Brandon Ayuk's probably going to be gone. They don't seem to want to deal with him. Kittle is obviously hurt. So where's all the targets going to? Yeah, you can throw it to Christian McCaffrey a lot, but he's getting up there in age and he's had injuries. So yeah, the Dazon Stribling one is really interesting. I would take him here very I am going to take him here very interesting or very quickly because like you said, when you're looking at, hey, he was drafted as a 33rd overall pick, I'm going to bet on that in Dynasty way more than I'm going to bet on someone who was taken in the 3rd or in the 4th, 5th, 6th round and stuff and is pushed down the depth chart.
Aligned with you, and a quick thank you to the CPUs for taking 2 quarterbacks. Undrafted free agent Joey Fagnano, future QB3, hopefully for the Baltimore Ravens. And Taylon Green, who, I guess if you are doing 4 rounds, isn't the worst taxi squad stash. Jack Endries, who I do love as a taxi squad stash in Cincinnati. I think he has a eventual route to playing time. And then Jaron Kanak, a little bit of a shocker that he comes off the board there, but the CPU getting as much orange as they can on the screen, taking all these tight ends, giving us more opportunity for content, Jace. We have good players on the board longer. Yep. I'm going to take Malachi Fields here, a player that I considered a couple rounds ago and will take again. I think the New York Giants got a good one in Malachi Fields. I think he's a good big-bodied threat for Jackson Dart and can allow Malik Neighbors to, go in the slot and play the Z and the flanker style receiver while he controls the X for the portion of the snaps that he'll be on the field. So we'll see how much value Malachi Fields gives you in year one. Obviously want to shout out Brazel and Branch. Those players should not be available here. Little further down the board, going to touch on some running backs before I make the pick. Is Jamari Taylor is in a young but deep running back room in Jacksonville. Adam Randall is an intriguing one behind Derrick Henry, high ceiling guy that you could stash. And then Kalen Black, similar to Stribling, was taken very high by the 49ers. He was taken number 90, but you have to flag he was RB3 off the board over Jonah Coleman, over Mike Washington. So if you have Christian McCaffrey, draft Kalen Black.
Yeah, I was going to say that he is the same one. He's another one that I've taken in the back half of the third too. Like even before Le'Veon Moss said that he was retiring, I was taking him there. And like, just because he's behind McCaffrey, who there's still when he's there, he's great, but there's still question marks about him. And the positional value being taken as he was running back 3, right? He was the next one taken after Jadarian Price. So yeah, I mean, I think that that's a great one. The two, the other ones that I wanted to hit on, I think Eli Heinrich could maybe play in the Kenneth Gainwell role, especially for fantasy. Jalen Warren's there, and I don't think that they're super high on. Why am I drawing a blank of who they took out?
Caleb Johnson. They are not high on him anymore.
He pretty much got benched.
Yeah, not pretty much. He did.
So, him there, and then Seth McGowan. I don't remember how much you actually talked about him, but he's going to be one. As much as I hate it because me and you both love DJ Giddens. DJ Giddens is on my taxi squad. I'm going to have to make a decision with him, but Seth McGowan might be someone who could take some touches, especially goal line stuff, off of Jonathan Taylor and potentially have some fantasy value. I'm trying to scroll down here. There's really no one else.
Yeah,
I think
I got two more that I found just buried beyond this list of endless wide receivers. Eli Raridon was taken with a valuable pick by the New England Patriots. I think he's got a path to future tight end one there. And then the other guy is Sam Roush, who is below the likes of Lake McCree and Bauer Sharp and Nate Borkacher. I can't tell you why that's the case, but if you're drafting on Sleeper, know that you have a long time before you have to take Sam Roush, but he was drafted with a top 70 pick. Cole Kmet could be on his way out of Chicago soon. Sam Roush is a good football player. He's, maybe not going to develop into some superstar because Colston Loveland is on that roster, but he is worth a look as a sleeper. And that's kind of it for the guys I would bring.
Yeah, I mean, some leagues might go to 5 rounds, and I mean, if this is how I've done a lot. I've done 2, like I said, real drafts, and I mean, this many quarterbacks weren't taken. Same with tight ends, so you're getting more of these running backs, receivers coming off the board. But Adam Randall's another one that's very similar to Derrick Henry there, and who knows how much longer Derrick Henry has, but that's a guy that you might be able to stash for a year, maybe 2, and he could potentially take some carries. He's only played running back for a year, I believe. I believe he was a receiver at Clemson, and then he got moved to running back this year, and so he's a guy that fits the mold like Derrick Henry. They might be trying to have him develop behind him. So those are a couple names, and like we say, guys, like, for people that don't follow the NFL draft and are just doing Dynasty, which probably isn't a lot because you really can't do Dynasty without following the NFL draft. But if you can get a guy like Dazon Stribling, even in the mid to late third, because of where he was drafted, that's good value. Like, that is a guy who I will willingly put on my taxi squad for a couple weeks and see if he's not playing by week 4 or 5, maybe even start him, not in my roster, but you might not need a taxi squad him. He might be on the field week 1. Same thing with Kalen Black, especially if you have Christian McCaffrey. Squad that guy, see if he gets hurt, because around all in a guys you can find in the 3rd and 4th rounds that can still be valuable either this year or down the road.
All right, Malachi Fields it is here. And we'll see what the CPU.
We'll see. Oh, Roush and Koziel.
Heard me on Sam Roush and then took Tanner Koziel.
Yeah, I can't believe they took Koziel over Borkacher. Borkacher was the 8th overall pick. What the heck's going on here?
Oh, Jacksonville.
Yes. So again, guys, if you're on audio only, you guys can flip over and read or see the actual draft board. But for those of you guys that are audio only, at the 103, I took Carnell Tate. At the 203, I took Eli Stowers. The 303, Antonio Williams. And the 403, Dazon Stribling. And then, Max, you want to read off who you took?
From mine, in the 8th slot, first round, Kenyon Sadiq. In the 2nd, it was Katron Allen. And the 3rd and 4th, Skylar Bell and Malachi Fields. Any closing thoughts from you, Jace? Any names that pop in your head, guys we didn't shout out that you maybe want to flag if leagues have some undrafted free agents beyond the 4th round?
Let me
give
ask,
me one name.
Brandon Sorsby, once he enters supplemental draft, when does he get put into this? I mean, most of you guys that are doing a dynasty draft or whatever probably are going to do it way before the supplemental draft or whatever, but that might be a big fab war for some people. If you need a quarterback and you want to bid on Sorsby and he does get taken, someone gives up a 2nd or 3rd round pick, say the Jets or say the Cardinals or someone like that, might not be a bad idea to take a couple, $50 fab dollars or whatever and throw it down on him because he has the talent. Now, it's going to be interesting to see how the NFL handles it because they might be like, you're going to be suspended year 1 or, gambling or whatever. There's still a long way to go in that, but I definitely think that it's going to be interesting to see how Sorsby's handled in real life, but also in Dynasty, because I probably would put him as, would you have taken, who do you think's better, him or Ty Simpson?
Ty Simpson now.
Depending on where Sorsby goes, who would you take in Dynasty? Like if Sorsby if
goes
they were
to Atlanta, I think I would take Sorsby if I'm looking for more immediate impact. Here's what I'll caveat with Sorsby is I wonder if teams are looking at him as more of a trial than a future plan. Like teams like Arizona and Atlanta are going to say, hey, we're going to roll. No pun intended. We're going to roll the dice, take the gamble on Brennan Sorsby, and then revisit what our quarterback need looks like in April. I wonder if that's the case. Obviously, he'll have a shortened onboarding time, shortened OTA, and I keep wanting to say spring training, shortened preseason because of when the supplemental draft is. But yeah, I think it's an interesting one. I think we'll have a fab draft or a fab auction in my league for Brandon Sorsby. Just a fun one. To see how valuable he is.
How dare you guys bet on him? You're trying to throw dollars.
That was kind of the point. That was kind of the point.
But it's interesting because for those of you guys that don't understand the supplemental draft, I know we're still talking Dynasty, but this is a little bit of
This is a wrinkle that could come in later on.
It is. So for how it works is it's kind of a silent draft where teams are like, okay, this player's in the draft. I'm going to submit a 3rd round pick for Sorsby. No one else knows what the other team submitted, and then the highest bidder goes. Now, I haven't quite studied up. Maybe you know the answer to this. If both teams submit a 2nd round pick, how do they handle it? Do you know what the tiebreaker is?
I'm honestly not sure what the tiebreaker is.
Yeah, and I mean, so we'd have to do a little bit more research and stuff on things like that. But so let's say that I don't think Arizona would do it because they just spent a 3rd on Carson Beck. But let's say that
I hope, by the way, I hope that they do.
It would be nice, but let's say
I'm so against what they did with that 65th pick.
Let's say for some reason the Jets do it and they throw a 2nd or 3rd round pick there. Now that's steep for a guy that has a lot of question marks.
Yeah.
But let's say he does work out and now they have their 3 1st round picks from this year and 3 1st round picks from 2027, all to go around Sorsby and the defense, whatever it is. It's really interesting. And so it's a huge gamble. It's a huge risk, and we've probably never seen anything like this before, and we've definitely never seen anything work out like this where you take a supplemental draft guy and he turns into a franchise player, let alone a franchise quarterback, the most important position. So it's a huge long shot, but it's really interesting to see who's going to bid what and see who's going to take a chance. Because like you said, it will probably be a 1-year trial. But if they see enough from him and they're like, hey, I probably would have taken him with a 1st round pick in next year's class if he would have balled out at Texas Tech, it would have been real interesting to see how he develops in an NFL system. So that'll be interesting. But anyone on your list that we didn't talk about?
One last note on Sorsby. I think if you're stuck feeling like you need to take a Becker, a Klubnik, or an Aller earlier than you feel like you might need to, that's kind of an opt-out for you. If you're like, I could find a way to get Sorsby. That's one note. And then Kevin Coleman Jr. was one last name I wanted to bring up, the wide receiver out of Missouri going to the Miami Dolphins, just because of how thin they are. I think he's somebody that could go after all the receivers that we drafted, but just a little late sleeper that we did not bring to the table. Jace, anything else from you before we jump?
No, this is always fun. I know it's a little bit off of, what the show actually is. It's still a draft. It's just not,
it's a draft and it's with rookies. I think it falls right in our wheelhouse. Fantasy gurus let us know how we did, and most importantly, how we didn't do.
Yeah. So appreciate all the support, guys. Let us know down below who you've already drafted, who you're targeting in dynasty drafts for rookies. Later on in the offseason, we'll do something where me and Max actually draft like from the rookies and we make a team against each other. So going to be a battle for Fernando Mendoza unless one of us really just doesn't care and stuff. But so we'll, probably draft a quarterback, 2 receivers, 2 running backs, and make a little team against each other. But in the meantime, probably a 2027 mock, a couple things that we have planned for offseason content and then summer scouting sooner rather than later.
Before these guys hit the NFL, I think this is the second to last episode where we're really covering the rookies. And then you'll hear about some of the rookies and in some stock watches where we'll take some victory laps at the end of the episodes. But yeah, good to get one of the closer to final looks at these rookies before they start their NFL careers. As Jay said, thank you guys so much for listening. For Jace Campbell, I'm Max Shostak, and we will see you guys next time. Peace.